Hello and welcome. What started as a YouTube channel in 2015 today has redefined the way the preparation for the UPSC Civil Services exam is done. Anyone and everyone with internet access can prepare for this prestigious exam in the comfort of their home. Unacademy truly revolutionized the way India studied. And the next logical step was for Unacademy to come straight into the very heart of UPSC preparation. The toughest exam in the country can only be tackled with the finest minds of our generation. It gives me incredible honor to welcome all of you to the launch of the Unacademy Offline Classroom Program for Civil Services. There cannot be a greater privilege to have a faculty panel with more than 100 years of collective teaching experience before us. We've been working tirelessly for the last few months to bring together the finest and the most effective way to prepare. Ladies and gentlemen, we heartily welcome you to this program. We will now begin by introducing our eminent faculties. No doubt, they don't need any introduction. But for the uninitiated, for the ones who are just starting preparation, each of these have the perfect balance of experience and relevance. So, welcome our faculties as they introduce themselves to you.
Hello friends, I am M. Puri and I specialize in the teaching of GS Paper 2. Plus, in addition, I also teach public administration as an optional subject and Paper 1 for political science optional. I've been engaged in this field for over 20 years now, and in fact, if you count my preparation years, in my third attempt itself I started teaching. So if you count those years also, it's close to around 25 years that I've been teaching. For about 15 years of my teaching career, I've been doing so in the city of Delhi, that is the heart of Delhi, Rajinder Nagar itself.
Hello friends, my name is Pavneet and I have been associated with teaching for civil services exam for the last 10 years now. I have specialized in international relations and internal security. I am also an author of the 2 best-selling books on the same particular subjects that I teach. Apart from this, I also have a specialization in the political science optional. And now I am at Unacademy Offline Experience Centre with all of you to give you the best quality experience for education. And here I will be teaching you the international relations and internal security. Thank you.
Hi, I am Atul Garg and I'll be teaching you GS Paper 4, that is Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude. I've been teaching this paper for the last 10 years since 2013 when it was introduced for the first time by UPSC. In fact, I'm the privileged one, I would say, that I'm the first teacher of ethics in India. I have also authored 2 books on ethics which are bestsellers in their own categories. Together, in fact, I would say that in the last 10 years, thousands of students I have taught with hundreds of confirmed selection. And I think that will be all.
So hi, this is Anuj Garg. I'm your faculty for Indian history. I've been teaching this subject from the past years. In my past 8 years of teaching experience, I have realized that there is a wrong perception in the market around Indian history, that it is only related to facts and ratification of events. At the Unacademy Offline UPSC Centre, we will try to solve and address this issue and help you command a solid grip on your subject.
Hello friends, this is Himanshu Sharma and I will be your faculty at Unacademy for Geography, Environment Ecology and Disaster Management. I have been teaching in UPSC field for almost 15 years now, and I have tried to redefine how geography, which has so much huge syllabus and where the boundaries are not well defined, to how to ultimately tackle it in a very scientific and systematic manner. Till now, I have mentored thousands of students and given selections more than 500. So I'll be here now, available in Unacademy. You're all welcome to join.
Hello my dear students, I am Vivek Singh and I will be taking your classes for the Indian economy. I am teaching this subject since last 10 years in the hub of UPSC, that is Old Rajinder Nagar. Going back, I am a 2004 pass out from IIT BHU and I have done my MBA from Executive MBA, Ahmedabad, and I have around 10 years of industry experience also. I have written 2 books. One is The Indian Economy, which is quite easy in language to understand, and the other is Economy MCQs.
Okay, hello everyone. Myself Piyush Kumar. I'll be primarily dealing with the subjects related to history. So there are many areas in history, as you know, that ancient Indian history, medieval Indian history, modern and the world, including art and culture. So I have been teaching in this industry for last 10 years, and so far I have mentored more than 1,000 students, and many selections are there. I've been teaching this history optional as well. As Hanu sir was just now suggesting, when it comes to this subject, there are so many wrong perceptions for this subject. Like this is always seen in terms of facts, whether it is not correct. Like until and unless you analyze the subject properly, you won't be able to cope up with the subject properly. And that's how here we'll be just changing the older approach, and we'll be just trying to teach these subjects with a very new approach that can help you to clear this up, like, to cope up with the subjects very, very effectively.
Let's start from the start. The UPSC Civil Services preparation is a daunting idea for most aspirants in the country because of the magnanimity of the syllabus. I'd like to ask Vivek sir, the very fundamentals of questions that we must answer when we begin our UPSC prep. We often understand that at the end of the day, it's a government exam. और कहते हैं ना कि सरकारी एग्जाम की तैयारी सरकारी तरीके से करनी चाहिए. And the 2 most important elements of government exam prep is the syllabus and the PYQ.
Right.
Sir, how do we make that as a base and decide our entire curriculum?
See, this UPSC preparation, as we all know, that this is one of the toughest exam all over the world and the topmost exam for India. Now, a lot of students have started preparing for this UPSC preparation, but 2 things, as you said, that are very important is that you must know the syllabus and PYQs. Now, just if you see the syllabus, sometimes it becomes difficult to know that what exactly we need to study in that syllabus, because seeing the language, you won't be able to know that what is the limit, from where to start, or what all sorts of things needs to be covered. Now, the best guide for that is your previous year questions. So I would suggest that you must keep the last 10 years previous year questions on your table, and just by one time looking at the question paper, you cannot decide. You just keep on referring the question paper again and again, because there are too much of content in the market. If you will not refer the question paper, you somewhere get lost into too much of content that is floating in the market. So my suggestion is that keep on referring the question paper. Whatever you are reading, just look at the question paper, that what kind of questions have been asked. Because just by seeing the language of the syllabus, it's difficult to determine that what to study and what not to study. So see the syllabus, take 1 or 2 standard books for every subject. Keep on referring the question paper, because that previous year question paper is going to become the guiding light for in your preparation basically. And if you'll keep on referring, you are not going to deviate, you will be able to finish your syllabus on time. So PYQs are the best way to start with. PYQs are the best way for your UPSC preparation, because for example, like in economy, in prelims, it is just written that Indian economy and social sector schemes. Now, by seeing this, you just cannot know that what should I prepare. What is the answer? Look at the last 10 years question. That will guide you that what all sorts of things needs to be covered.
I think that it has also become important in recent times when we are experiencing lots of information noise. There is too much of information and students are very much confused where the boundaries should be drawn. And in that scenario, I think the PYQs are the most objective guides available to guide you in that.
In fact, most of the teachers have done this thing only, that we have included PYQs in our strategy to teach you people. All right, so I think that's a very good strategy on our part also.
Incredibly well said, sir. In fact, the syllabus in terms of what is mentioned in the UPSC syllabus is incredible. They make a student well aware of almost every entity in and around them. The preparation for this exam truly changes the way a person believes. But the problem is that the syllabus in itself is not a very well organized syllabus. For example, sir, there is social justice in paper 2, but social issues in paper 1. For example, there is disaster management in a separate section. There is geography in a separate section. For example, governance also gets sort of divided in paper 2, but also is focused in paper 4 also towards the latter end of it. And what ends up happening because of all of this is a child is never able to figure out the start and the end point of it all. And that's exactly the sort of problem we've tried to solve. We've come down to our basics. We've said we'll start with our basic subjects, and only once our basic subjects are substantially covered will we graduate the students to a higher and advanced level of learning. For instance, when Pavneet sir comes and delivers his lectures on international relations, it will be ensured that a substantive portion of world history is covered before Pavneet sir comes and delivers his lectures on international relations. For example, when sir comes and delivers his lectures on internal security, there have to be fundamentals of law and economics covered so that Pavneet sir can teach money laundering in the most effective manner. So that kind of a syllabus integration becomes a non-negotiable in prep. And at the end of the day, our story starts with the syllabus and our journey is the syllabus, and the PYQs become like guiding lights on the road. So for instance, when we teach education policy and we see the previous year questions on education policy, we see analytical questions on higher education being asked, but we see scheme review questions in school education being asked. That is the kind of analysis we're able to derive once we've gone through the previous year questions, and that is exactly what needs to be delivered. We function on a very simple principle, content first. And that tackles, as Himanshu sir said, the information overload problem. As Vivek sir said, it is essentially the center point of everything, which is the syllabus and the PYQs. Sir, while the UPSC preparation makes us aware of almost everything, Atul sir, I'd like to ask you, the undercurrent of UPSC, which is no longer an undercurrent but an overcurrent nowadays, is current affairs. And current affairs becomes the best friend and the worst nightmare for the student at the same time. Now, what are your views on how should current affairs be done in the most productive manner?
Well, what you have said is true. For most of the students, current affairs have created a lot of confusion. They are very doubtful that how we should prepare about them, how we should go about them. They have created a phobia around them. For most of the students, it is basically a game spoiler for them, but I would say that it is something which is a game savior for them. It is about how well you are prepared about it. Students usually have confusion like from where we should prepare from, what we should prepare, how we should go about it, and this is where Unacademy is going to help you out. Unacademy has created a multi-pronged strategy to deal with this aspect of examination. Like what we are going to do. First of all teachers, they are going to integrate current affairs in their basic teaching style. What we are going to do, suppose something has come in the newspaper today and I am taking your class today, so I'll integrate that thing in my lectures also. Like suppose if moonlighting is there, so I will connect it with professional ethics, with private ethics. So you people have to develop this link between what is happening in current affairs and how it is connected with the syllabus. So that thing will be done by the respected teachers. Then secondly, every week you guys will get 100 questions from the current affairs that will be prepared by the Unacademy team. On monthly basis also, one current affairs magazine also will be provided to you. That would basically be the integration of all the major resources. Like let's say the Hindu newspaper, the Indian Express is there, Yojana, Kurukshetra. Most of the important resources which are available, all of them would be integrated by the Unacademy team and will be provided to you at a one-stop solution. Plus, even after the classes, some basic ideas would be given to you, some basic resources would be available to you. So basically, Unacademy is not going to stay with you for the 11 months of preparation or the course, but even after that, support system would be available with you. The only thing that I would like to suggest you people is to keep reading the newspapers. I mean, you should have developed a daily habit of reading newspaper because this is something that will stay with you. And newspapers are read not only for the information, but also for the aesthetic part. Even see, you should read newspaper just for the fun of reading, for the sake of reading. You should not take it as a part of the syllabus. Okay, and how to connect that newspaper things with the syllabus, that we teachers will do. So for you, you just have to run daily newspaper. In fact, it is something that you have to do even after you're clearing the civil services. Being an IAS officer, it is expected that you should have knowledge of what is happening around you. So develop it as a habit. It will help you even after the selection, and rest of the things we will take care of.
Absolutely, sir. See, when we set up an academic team at the Unacademy Classroom Centre, that academic team with extremely qualified people with enormous experience with the exam work under the larger supervision of the teaching staff. Now, what usually ends up happening is every subject has a different current affairs cycle. Economy may have a longer duration of current affairs which is relevant. IR may have a slightly different. Polity may have a slightly different. And when we connect it to the syllabus, when we design our subject specific current affair timelines, and that has been done proprietarily, it's a trade secret with us because we've developed it only for our Unacademy classroom program, that gets delivered. And we start from the basics. No teacher worth their salt will ever say, don't read the paper, because it is the basis of it all. It makes you a better person, it makes you understand better, express better. So what we do on a weekly basis at the Unacademy classroom program here in Rajinder Nagar in Delhi is that every week our team of academic mentors or academic content professionals, they will walk you through the newspaper, whichever one you decide to read. They will tell you what needs to be read, they will explain what needs to be read, but they will ensure that you read the paper too. We do not fundamentally believe in the principle of spoon feeding.
It is also important to read the newspapers daily, because you have to be aware about the events, how they are occurring in time and space. Because what happens is magazines will give you lots of information, all the current affairs will be covered. But that factor of being aware with respect to time and space, that can only happen when you are reading the newspapers daily.
A very simple solution: when a child starts reading the paper, a child spends about 2 hours reading a single paper. That 2 hour can only be condensed into a relevant 1 hour when the child over a period of a few months understands X needs to be read and Y doesn't need to be read. That kind of hand holding starts at the very basic level in the classroom. That gets upgraded with a fortnightly coverage of current affairs in classrooms, supplemented with our flagship Unacademy Articulate Current Affairs magazine, which now gets developed here with our content team in-house in Delhi. And that, of course, gets supplemented to the overall delivery of our classes. And as Atul sir very clearly said, and so did Himanshu sir, that any subject which has a current affairs linkage will have that linkage delivered in class. And that becomes the essence of it. So that, for example, even if something is relevant today, but that topic comes in class 2 months later, the child is still able to recollect it to X that was been delivered in class 2 months before. So that kind of a current affairs program which supports, supplements, and gives a certain degree of closure. At the end of the day, what students are looking for when they come to our offline classroom program, or any program for that matter, is closure with current affairs. I need to do these 10 things, I need to do these 10 things right, and that is it, and then life moves on. I know it's difficult, it's easier said than done, but somewhere we've got to start achieving that objective, which then moves us to address the next spinal problem of UPSC. Pavneet sir, I'd like to take your inputs on this. You've specialized in this, and you've been known all over the country for your inputs and your insights on this. Answer writing, Pavneet sir, is a national problem. If it could be an election agenda, answer writing could have become an election manifesto problem, because it is so severe. Now, why does this problem exist? And how do we place this problem in the larger delivery of classrooms in the country?
So one big problem with respect to answer writing that I normally see in the students is that they tend to write the answers without any adequate knowledge base. So in this sense, my honest suggestion that I often make is that first try to develop a grasp over the basics of the subject. And once you know the basics of the subject well, then you are in a position to write the answers, because then at least you have some content to write. If the problem normally arises when we read one article in the newspaper and then at the end of that 250-word article, we tend to write an answer of that in 150 words, which is not going to happen unless you have adequate content about that particular article in the newspaper in advance in your brain. So that's the first thing, that one needs to actually prepare the content first and then go for the answer writing. The second thing is that when normally people do answer writing, one basic mistake that they tend to make is they just tend to write anything. My sincere advice again is that when you write, please write in 150 or 250 words, because that's precisely what UPSC wants. And if you start training yourself to just express in, let's say, 4 pages or 5 pages, and then you develop a mastery over that, it's going to be very difficult for you to come down to 150 words. But if you start training yourself in 150 words, you'll actually get trained in 150 words or 250 words. And the last is that, when you write the answers, please make sure that you focus on the directive words which are given at the end of every question. Because if you look at the general studies paper and if you observe the questions, then one thing you will observe in the questions is that, at the end of every question, if there are 20 questions in the paper, you'll have at least 13 to 14 different directive words: discuss, elucidate, examine, elaborate, etc. Every directive word has a meaning. And UPSC wants an answer to their question, not the answer to what we want to write. So please focus on the directive words, construct your answers, and design your brain to function in a way that you are giving the answers to their questions based on these directive words which are there.
Absolutely, sir. Anybody would like to?
When it comes to answer writing, like what I have observed, because I have been also correcting the answers for very long, that students are not thinking before writing. That's one problem. Like, sometimes what happens that they have just read a content and they just try to write the same content in the answer. Like, they are not able, what Pavneet sir was saying, they're not able to comprehend that what exactly the question is asking. And then after understanding that if somebody is writing, so at least it will be like, accurate, or let's say close to accurate. But then what happens, they are just whatever they know, like they try to produce that in the answers, So I think the students must be guided in such a way that they could understand, okay, this specific thing has been asked in the question and we are supposed to write the answer of that. So I think this could come only with the training, proper training. So that's very important.
I just would like to add one thing. A lot of students are reading books, attending classes, but the challenge of answer writing is that brainstorming. I have seen that students have read this chapter, revised it 2-3 times, and then they say that, sir, I'm not able to frame the answers. So that framing of answers before coming on paper, it should first come to your mind. So once you have read the book, revised it, close it, and then try to brainstorm it, that what you have read, what are the issues, what are the challenges, what are the linkages. You will have to think in your mind. Once all those thought processes there in your mind, then it becomes very easy to put it on paper. So the very important thing is that once you have read it or revised it, the syllabus subject, close it and then try to think over it, what you have read, how it is linked, what are the issues, what are the reforms. You will have to brainstorm it. It will make your answer writing quite easier.
I want to add one point to what sir also said, is that if I just give you a simple example, in 2016 in the internal security, the UPSC gave a question that terrorism is becoming a competitive industry, analyze. This was a statement-based question that they gave. Terrorism is becoming a competitive industry. Now the problem is that without much thinking, without brainstorming, what students tend to do is they just try to, locate their structures of brain, fish out whatever information about terrorism they have. So normally when I give this question, I see students writing an answer where they say, what is terrorism? What is the definition of terrorism? How does India define terrorism? How does UN define terrorism? Then they have some knowledge in their brain about some, random terrorist groups, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Allah, Tiger, etc. They want to drop that. And then the answer gets over. I mean, the problem is you're not addressing what the UPSC wants. They are asking how is terrorism becoming a competitive industry? And you have to analyze that. So as very rightly said, the framing part is important. And the most important is that you need to have content to understand this. Because these kind of things cannot be done, through 1-page, 2-page notes. They require an in-depth study. That's the main thing.
And see, it's all about connecting the dots, especially when it's about mains answer writing. Like when I ask students to write answers of GS paper 4, so I also ask them to add a constitutional perspective, a historical perspective also. Similarly, if they are writing an internal security answer, so they should add an ethical perspective also to that. So you not only have to make an intra-paper connections, but also the inter-paper connections. All GS paper 1, 2, 3, 4, all of them are highly interconnected, and you can answer one section by your knowledge from other sections. So this thing you guys have to do, and you have to be a bit patient for your mains answer writing. First of all, start with your MCQs, because they are more a kind of recognition things, and mains answers are more recall things. Okay, so start with MCQs, try to answer some simple questions in starting, and then try to increase the complexities of the thing.
Absolutely. In fact, as the exam has evolved post 2013, since the pattern has changed, the separation of power, so to speak, between 1, 2, 3, 4 is also diluted. You'll see so many questions across different subject dimensions being asked across subject patterns. And Bhavneet sir and Piyush sir were absolutely on point when they said, you need to understand what the question is. You need to think of what are the possible arguments in and around the question. And as Bhavneet sir very clearly said, the most difficult part is to understand what the question is really asking. Don't take a word out of the question and write whatever you know about the word, which is a very common mistake that almost every aspirant with years into prep does. So when we try to solve this problem, we look at it as a hand-holding exercise. We understand that answer writing has to be gradual and there has to be a time for it. And answer writing must begin with, again, the subject specific customizations. How a polity answer versus an IR answer versus an ethics answer versus a history versus a geography versus an econ versus a history answer has to be written are completely different answers. And every subject will have its own demand. And the larger framework is set out by our subject teachers, which is then communicated to our team of evaluators that we would have in-house. And only when a substantial chunk is covered, and once the teachers are ready that yes, the students are to write answers now, will answers be done? Because at the end of the day, a coaching is nothing but an academic gym. You can't pick up 100 kilos of dead weight on day one.
Yes, sir.
And that is exactly how we've structured the Unacademy classroom program in Rajinder Nagar today.
In fact, the task is very difficult for us because we have to, first of all, make you forget your university style of answer writing. You have to forget that thing and you have to go with a new approach, which is highly interdisciplinary.
Exactly. Which then brings us to another extremely important but a very soft element which can make all the difference, because at the end of the day this preparation is a lonely preparation. Let's call a spade. But having said that, we require a set of individuals who've been through the same process, who understand the mistakes more than anybody else because they've been the most recent who've committed those mistakes. What we're essentially trying to get to is great mentorship. Now, great mentorship does not necessarily have to be giving them a sauce list. That's what our job is. But a great mentor is supposed to be there for the child at every time the child feels a little lost. So, Piyush sir, my question to you is on mentorship. It is, what makes a great mentor? What is the role idealized for a great mentor?
Well, sir, what I believe that when students do come for the preparation, they do come from very different backgrounds. Like somebody are from humanities, somebody are from science. So what I have observed that people are having very personalized kind of problems. So they are not having a common problem what we can address in the class itself. Like if somebody is coming from science, they are always seeing the things in a very scientific approach. For them, 2 and 2 is always 4. There cannot be any other relation between these two. But when it comes to the students, so since as I told you that they do have very personalized kind of problem, so if nobody is there to address these problems, because what I have noticed in my journey, the students are coming to the class, they're going back, coming to the class, going back, and hardly out of 200 students, like in a batch, only 10 students are coming and they're just talking to the teachers. The rest are either shy or maybe they're feeling something else because of what they never approach to their teachers that this is the difficulty that I'm having, or these are the difficulties that I'm having, and I'm looking for a solution. Like when it comes to answer writing, as again I'll tell you, the 5-6 people, they're very serious, they're just writing certain answers and they're showing to you, otherwise rest of all are not doing it. So this is the reason, because of what I believe, that a personal mentorship is very important, and it is nothing but the grooming the students, like, according to his or her requirement. Because as I told you that the cases are very different, so they need like different kind of guidance. Somebody is having like problem while cramming the facts, like let's say I'm teaching history, so like this is a very genuine question which is coming to me, that I'm not able to recall the facts. But I think when it comes to facts, like she or he should be guided in such a way that there is a limited facts which is required. In the same way, when it comes to answer writing, like, they are having different kind of problems. If somebody is coming from humanities, so they do have a very different approach for the answer writing. If somebody is coming from sciences, they are having a very different approach for the answer writing. So I think mentorship is also something which is differing from case to case. You can't like treat everyone in the same fashion. So like in your subject, you have to understand what are the things that must be conveyed to a particular person or a student or aspirant, right, properly, and then like he or she should be guided in that way.
Absolutely. In fact, it's often said education is one of the toughest problems to solve. And we often make the mistake of thinking that students who are either graduates or to be graduates are mentally sharp enough to understand the learning curve. There are students who will, for example, with history come to you and tell you, we like history, but we just can't remember it. There are going to be people who will come to you and tell you, oh, we're not able to visualize economics happening in front of us. There'll be so many students who will come to us and will come to a polity class and will say, this seems too technical, this seems too complex, but in reality, it actually is not. And for those specific exercises, that maybe we need to change the way you're memorizing history. Maybe we need to change the way you are trying to revise by writing your notes. Maybe we need to change the way you are drafting your notes in the first place.
One time it happened, one of my students was facing lots of problem in writing the answers in limited number of words. So what we did for that student was, I told him that what you have to do is, like you used to write Pressy in your school times. So we made those Pressy boxes and particular number of words, and we made him exercise that exhaustively, practice it. Ultimately, he was able to learn that and how to confine himself in limited number of words.
Absolutely.
And one more thing I would like to add here is the emotional support that must be provided. Like being an ethics teacher, students often develop this personal connect with me. And like I've been playing this mentoring role for the last 10 years, and most of the questions which students ask to me are from their personal life. Emotionally, they are very vulnerable because this exam process in itself is very tedious. So I think this is what Unacademy team tends to provide to the students also, not only the mental support, but also the emotional support to them. They can come, basically what we say, a shoulder to cry. So basically that personal individual consideration would be provided to the students.
Understood. Which is also why we must understand in a very simple setup that whether it is about academic support or mental health support or perhaps anything else, what eventually ends up happening is you need to be there with the child for all realms put into one. What happens in most cases is what the teachers are saying versus what the mentors are saying can be two different narratives altogether. And that becomes a more difficult problem, and it blasts in the child's faces 3 to 5 months from now. Which is why when we design our mentorship program and we design our mentorship facilities at the classroom program here in Rajinder Nagar, we make sure that the mentors are given very clear supervisory guidelines by the subject lead teachers. If the subject teacher has said X, the mentor can use that X, add a little bit of a personal experience that the mentor would have, and then execute it. Because it should not be the case that 3 months later the child is like, I was told X in the classroom, Y by the mentor, Z by my friend who I have chai with every day in the evening, and the end of the day what happens is a massive confusion. Now that is something that we have to largely avoid at all costs, and that is why the kind of mentorship program that we've devised is honestly first in its class. This has not happened anywhere else, where we've actually used proven academic methods, policy methods, research methods to design the mentorship program, which therefore then also leads to a very, very important question, sir, and this is a question which is, at the end of the day, it is an exam. You're preparing for an exam, so you have to be in a similar environment as much as possible. What we are referring to, sir, are tests. Tests make and break an individual. Now, in an exam as diverse and as objective and as subjective as this, what is your view on testing for this exam?
See, it can be summed up in one general statement that 9/10 of a genius is sweat. Tests are a form of dry runs and they're a form of rehearsals, which is very obvious that not just for civil services, for any kind of examination, repeated testing is something which is a key to your success. Correct. Acha, what I have observed over the years I've been teaching now is, and I've been observing, this observation has been very repetitive with me, that many of the students who have not been able to get good marks in any kind of paper, whether it's a general studies paper or perhaps even the optional paper, it is largely on account of the fact that on account of inadequate writing practice, they were not often able to complete the paper. Or the last 2 or 3 questions were done in the last 10-15 minutes, they were not able to inject adequate quality also into that, right? But you have to understand one thing, that UPSC evaluates you in terms of what answers you write over here. I'll just give you a very simple, a couple of examples over here. And it can be, this is in the form of a question also, you can respond to it wherever you're watching this. My point is this thing, that what is the most fundamental thing that a person has to do to win a race? Let us say you are running in a 42 kilometers, a massive race, 42 kilometer marathon. So what's the most fundamental thing a person needs to do to win a race? The most fundamental, the answers that your responses may range from hard work, practice, this and that, blah, blah, all that is correct. But the thing is that to win a 42 kilometer marathon, the most important thing you have to do is you have to firstly complete the 42 kilometers. You cannot win a 42 kilometer marathon by running 41.9 kilometers, right? So if you are not able to complete those 20 questions or whatever be the number of questions in your examination, and you're not able to inject equal quantum of quality in all those answers you've written, then actually, then you have actually handicapped your own attempt as such, right? Another thing, you may be good civil service material. You may have some great intellectual depth in whatever subjects you are preparing. If you are my student, I may even tell you that, the kind of preparation levels you have, the kind of intellect you've shown me, your intelligence level, your emotional quotient, I understand this thing that you will make a tremendously good civil servant. But the UPSC does not know that. Understand one thing, look at a 100 meters runner. He spends almost 7 to 8 years to just knock off 1 split second from his scope, from the timing he recorded in the previous race. So if you are going to run a 100 meters race, you naturally have to work for about 5 or 6 years to improve your timing. But after 4 or 5 years of that back-breaking effort, you have those 10 lonely seconds, usually 100 meters run, those 10 lonely seconds to justify your whole existence. Now translate this into the civil service examination. You have 3 lonely hours to justify your entire existence. In those 3 lonely hours, if you mess up, and that is largely on account of inadequate rehearsals, inadequate testing, inadequate dry runs, inadequate number of questions you have attempted, or sometimes you've attempted a number of questions, but those questions were not of the kind of quality for which preparation and rehearsal has to be done by any civil service aspirant, right? So UPSC will test you on UPSC will give you marks, evaluate you, or perhaps give you any kind of service or ranking in the merit list only on the basis of what you do over there. Right, they don't know you personally, I may know you personally, I may say you are civil service material, but as I said, those 10 lonely seconds, 3 lonely hours to justify your entire existence. So it would be our earnest endeavor, as I'm given to understand, that we will be preparing obviously tests for you, and I believe that we'll be covering no less than 40 tests for both prelims and mains, ensuring this much, that the questions which are put, the questions which you are made to take, those questions would be very relevant to your exam preparation. And occasionally, I would insist that as far as my questions would be there, the difficulty level should be even slightly more than the ones which are being asked at this juncture in the civil service examinations, right? So testing is the key here. I've given you ample examples as to how much testing contributes. Achha, one interesting thing is, testing is inextricably related with your writing ability, right? Now, writing ability is 50% of the preparation, and most people don't understand this. I'm not exaggerating this, that 50% of your preparation is your writing skills. In the end, what you write over there is what matters. So a good answer is a combination of obviously the content you'll put in, and finally, of course, the expressive skills, right? Your articulation is poor, your content is good, still the answer is a bit handicapped. Your content is poor, your articulation is good, still there is a bit of infirmity in some inadequacy in your answer. So our effort would be to build both aspects of the content aspect has to be built by us only because we'll be the ones who will be teaching you over here, if indeed you choose to join our institution. But along with that, whatever we have taught you, whatever content-based intellectual depths you will be acquiring over here, we'll also be telling you how to express it cogently in a lucid manner, how one sentence must flow into the next one, how one paragraph must flow into the next one, how to conclude, how to begin, and something I'm pretty sure will hold you in very good stead.
Absolutely.
In fact, writing test has a physiological base also. Like whenever body do something for the first time, there is lot of adrenaline rush in your body. But when your body becomes habitual to it, the emotional responses becomes less and you are able to better tackle the situation also. So I think physiologically also, when you write more and more tests, it would be easy for you to give better performance in the real exam setting.
Absolutely. In fact, as Puri sir, there could not be a better way to put it, sir, is that you've got to finish your subjects before you test something on it. And that is an academic call we have taken when we've set this up. We can't bombard students with tests when they've not even read the portions from where the tests are going to come from. So our sectional tests, for example, will only be delivered to the students once that section has been completed in class. Similarly, once the test has been executed, formatted, drafted under teacher supervision, we will also ensure at the end of it, the child is also taught how to analyze their own test. This is not to do with subjective, but at least objective papers. If you can figure out accuracy, you can figure out your speed. Every child will have their own Waterloos with a specific exam. With a child may be very good at polity, but may have a little bit of a trauma when it comes to geography. For a lot of students, it might be the exact opposite. And that often is the case. So every child has to pick up their own strengths when they're attempting an objective paper. And that's where the test support team comes in, and the tests are only to be delivered 40 or so in number, as sir has told us, including sectional and full length, at a specific point of time where only and only a subject is adequately covered. Absolutely, sir, with you on that front. And that's that. It is always such a pleasure to hear such incredible minds with their collective years of experience telling us exactly how preparation should be done in the right way. We're in the era of one nation, one tax. We're in the era of one nation, one policy. And therefore, at Unacademy, we have one Unacademy and one strategy. There'll be one way to prepare collectively by all the faculties pooling in their resources together, delivering you the finest in-classroom, offline UPSC preparation experience. I'd like to thank the teachers for taking out their time. All of you, and we've been working very hard for this. And with this, thank you so much everybody for joining in. We'll see you in our classrooms very, very soon. But most importantly, you must also know that on the 4th of February, we have Mrunal sir, who is a name that needs no introduction at all, is coming down to Delhi to address all of you, and will also be taking in some budget related sessions the day after. One of the founders of Unacademy, Roman Seni, who left the civil services and was one of the founding fathers of Unacademy. He's coming down on the 10th to inaugurate the first class that happens here in Delhi. He'd be more than happy to address you, so please do come for it. And last but not the least, our classes start from the 4th of February. We have an early bird sort of an offer running for you. You can take up your Unacademy subscription for about £1 lakh or so, I think. And this offer is valid till about the 31st of January. And we hope to see you in class very, very soon. And we assure you, there's nothing more qualitative and more affordable in a classroom in the country today. Thank you.